And within 6 months of Bill Hayden's diagnosis, Control was indeed dead.
What killed him? Operation Witchcraft or Operation Testify?
Neither. Let's not be melodramatic. Control would disapprove. He died of old age. A little early. But Testify destroyed his function in life, which was a form of murder. I don't have nearly enough on Testify, Peter. Would you please,
Of course, George.
Telephone for you, sir. Ever such a rough voice. Says it's someone from your garage, and I can quite believe it.
Right.
Your rude mechanic has some bad news for you. Personally, I find mechanics are bad news, by and large.
Which phone, Alwyn?
The one on the left.
Well, at least get onto the head office today and find out when they can supply the damn thing. Hang on a minute. I think I got the number. Alwyn, sling that bag across for me, will you, please?
I will, sir. There you go. Open it for you.
Oh, thanks. Right, are you ready? The number you want is 437-6299.
Seems to be going according to plan.
Thank you.
Peter does sound jumpy. He might have overdone it a bit there. He was very loud.
I've seen it happen before. Tough ones who crack at 40. You lock it all away, pretend it isn't happening, and all of a sudden you find them at the desks. The tears pouring on the blotter. I thought I ought to say what's on my mind.
I think Peter will manage. You heard something about his murderous assignment in French North Africa, I suppose?
Something. Whispers.
Peter was overmatched and he lost. His agents were hanged. No one recovers entirely from that sort of thing. That is, I wouldn't trust a man who did.
Right, bag, please.
Peter, I am sorry to disturb you, but we have a tiny crisis. Percy Allaline would like a word with you. Quite an urgent word. Can you come now?
Of course, Toby. Have you been waiting? Didn't you tell Mr. Esterhazy where I was?
We've only just got here, Peter. Your office told us you were doing a spot of deviling. Only, Percy is anxious to speak to you now, you see.
Alwyn, there's a midday shuttle to Brixton, isn't there?
Yes.
You might get transport a buzz and ask them to take that thing over for me, will you?
Will do, sir. Will do.
Percy wants to consult you.
How are the martial arts, Paul? Any new tricks you could show me? Paul and I were paired on a tough guy course a little while back. Damn near killed each other.
Peter? Please.
Watch your feet.
No, she put them on again.
Well now, young Peter Gwilym, welcome to my house, about which you've been making calls, I hear. Are you lonely in the Brixton outposts? Tired of chasing the local virgins, if there are any in Brixton, which I would doubt? If you'll excuse my freedom, Mo. You do know that Mo Delaware is our new head of research, do you? Man with message and cleft stick does reach Brixton, does he?
Barring the monsoon.
I hear you've been hobnobbing with the late lamented Ricky Tarr, formerly of your section, dispatched by you to Lisbon, and since then listed by this service as a defector. How is he?
That's right, Chief. Ricky and I have tea at Fortnum's every afternoon. Jasmine.
Peter Gwilym, you may not be aware of this, but I am possessed of an extremely forgiving nature. I positively seethe with goodwill. All I require from you is the matter of your discussion with Tarr. I do not ask for his head or any other part of his offensive anatomy, and I will restrain my impulse personally to strangle him, or you. I would even go so far as to consider bringing you back into the palace from hateful Brixton, where presently you linger in well-earned obscurity.
In that case, I can't wait for him to turn up.
And there's a free pardon for your friend Ricky, until I get my hands on him.
I'll tell him that word for word. He'll be thrilled.
I'm very disappointed in you, young Peter. I pay you honest money, and you stab me in the back. I consider that extremely poor reward for keeping you alive, against the entreaties of my advisors, I may tell you. Let us begin again. If you won't give me a straight answer, perhaps you'll unburden to somebody more persuasive. Roy.
Ricky Tarr's got a daughter, hasn't he?
Yes, calls her Danny.
Talk about her a lot?
He told me he was fond of her. That's all I know.
What the hell are you shrugging at us like that for? I'm accusing you of playing hooky behind my back with a damn defector from your own damn section, of playing damn fool parlor games when you don't know the stakes, and all you do is shrug at me. There's a law, Gwillem, against consorting with enemy agents. Do you want me to throw the book at you?
I haven't seen him! Who's playing games? Not me. You are, so get off my back.
Who's Danny's mother?
Eurasian girl. But Tar likes to think she passes for full European. And the child.
12 years old, long blonde hair, brown eyes, slim. Is that Danny?
It could be.
So, if I told you that Danny and her mother were due to arrive in London 3 days ago on a direct flight from Tunis, I take it you would share our perplexity?
Yes, I would.
And you'd keep your mouth shut when we let you out of here.
It isn't ordinary flight information, Peter. The source is very private.
Ultra sensitive, in fact, Peter.
In that case, Toby, I'll try and keep my mouth ultra shut.
So, what do you make of it, young Peter? Come on. You were his boss, guide, philosopher, friend. Tell me why Ricky Tarr's in London.
You didn't say that. You said his girl and his kid were expected.
Don't be obtuse, man. Where little Danny goes, there goes Tar. Except he'd move first and have his impedimenta follow. Yes?
That would be favourite. All right. Tar was supposed to be sitting in Moscow, and now he's supposed to be back here on the Russian payroll. But why is it all so hot? What kind of plant can he be when we know everything about him? Down to his last attack of swine fever, from which he's only partially recovered, in my view. Excuse my freedom, Mo. I'm sorry, but what kind of plant is that?
Well, never mind what sort. Muddying pools, poisoning wells, maybe that damn sort. Pulling the rug out. Now, listen. Just you remember this. At the first peep, the first whisper of Tar or his lady or his wee bairn, young Peter Gwillem, you come to one of us grown-ups. Anyone you see at this table. But not another damn soul. The name on the passport is Poole. P-O-O-L-E. All three of them. Tar told his woman, so we understand, in case of difficulties, she should come to you.
Sign that, Peter, would you?
Stupid bloody cabaret. Percy gets more insufferable every day.
I wouldn't know, Bill, would I? I certify that I have today been advised of witchcraft report number 308, source Merlin. I undertake not to divulge any part of this report to other members of the service, nor will I divulge the existence of source Merlin. Get over, you sodding snail!
Peter!
Tar! Bastard tar!
Peter, slow down. Slow down.
The file on Testify seemed a bit thin. I hope it was worth the sweat.
Ricky Tarr's not lied to us, Peter, not in any material way. He's simply done what agents the world over do, failed to tell us the whole story. On the other hand, he has been rather clever.
Are you actually pleased with him?
Well, yes. We now know that Source Merlin works to Moscow Center, because that's where Merlin's information on Ricky Tarr must have come from. From Carla.
Ricky's been a lot better today, sir. Not nearly so nervy. Well, he did his football poos this morning, and this afternoon we planted some trees in the garden, and then this evening we had a nice game of cards.
Has he been out alone?
Oh, no, Mr. Smiley.
Used the telephone?
Oh, wouldn't dare, sir.
Has he talked about his daughter, Danny, or her mother?
Well, he did over the weekend, sir, but well, he's sort of cooled off about them since. I think it's in view of the emotional side.
Did he ever mention any arrangements for meeting them again? Anything about passports?
No, sir.
What has he talked about, for God's sake?
Well, mostly the Russian lady, say, Irina. Oh, he mentions her name a lot, Irina. He likes to read her diary. He says he's going to make Moscow Center swap them over for Irina when the mole's being caught and all this is being cleared up. And then he's going to buy a little place in Scotland. Oh, and he says he'll see me right, too. Get me a big job in the circus. I just listen, of course.
Right. You don't post those football pool coupons, do you, Ford?
Oh, no, Mr. Smiley.
Well, let's hope he doesn't have a win. That would be expensive for us. Thank you for your help, Miss Brimley. Sorry to impose on you.
He's gone to bed.
I must ask you once more. What did you do with the 2 Swiss escape passports you took with you to Lisbon?
I told you. Burn them.
When you bought your fake British passport in Istanbul, a passport for yourself in the name of Richard Henry Poole, did you buy any others from the same source?
Why? Why should I?
To protect your child and her mother. That seems quite reasonable. After all, it wouldn't be a very gallant act to leave the woman and the child you love to the mercy of the Moscow hood on your tail, while you escape to all this VIP protection. It's horrible to think of. Truly horrible. To contemplate the lengths Carla might go to in order to obtain your silence or your services. But perhaps what you actually did, and forgot to tell us about, was to burn the British passports you obtained for Mrs. Poole and Miss Danny Poole, but kept your own to convince Carla's footpads you thought it was still safe. Then, probably, you made travel bookings in the name of the Poole family for the same reason. You doctored the Swiss passports for Danny and her mother and made other arrangements for them. Like staying in Marseille, perhaps. Prince. I don't know where they are, but I'm sure no harm has come to them. Does that satisfy you?
Maybe you should keep a closer eye on your own damn woman and leave mine alone.
No, Peter. Perhaps it's just as well. I shouldn't know where you've hidden them, so long as you don't try to communicate. Unless, of course, you want me to help in some way, money or whatever.
No need. Let's trust each other, shall we? Are we friends again, Mr. Gwilym?
It won't be long now. Have you got all you need?
Can I have my gun back?
Yes. Oh, why not, Peter?
Do we buy that?
Oh, yes. I told you he'd been clever. A little bit of the truth is indispensable in the games agents play. You know that. Ricky put his family in safekeeping and found his own way home. He fooled the Russians. If Carla had a deal with him, do you think you and I would be alive and well and living in hope? Not by now, I think. Let it breathe a little.
No, we'll just leave it. We'll pour it when we're ready. Does anyone know Carla's real name? And how old is he?
Another mystery. Decades of his life unaccounted for. So many of the people he's worked with have a way of dying off. He was in England in 1936 and 41. That's documented. We can assume it was sometime during that period he recruited our mole, Gerald. I met him once in Delhi. Oh, this was long before we came to know him as the legendary Carla. In the mid-50s, Moscow Center was in pieces on the floor, wholesale purgings and shootings. And as a result, defection everywhere. I became a kind of commercial traveler. The whole world was my territory. Inspecting the goods, fixing the terms, disposing as seemed best, on London's instructions, of course. Well, I found myself off to India, where the authorities had arrested, at our request, on some trumped-up immigration nonsense, a Mr. Guestman. Carla's name at that time. He was on his way back to Moscow from San Francisco. Except that he didn't know when he left California that he was Moscow-bound. He'd been told to rendezvous with a TASS correspondent in Delhi. The message from the TASS man was an airplane ticket and don't ask me any questions, comrade. Carla was in disgrace. Summoned and doomed. There were two other things he didn't know. The first was that we'd intercepted the radio signal directing him to Delhi. The second was that the San Francisco network he'd organized had been rolled up, hide and hair, the day he left. Could we take those things off his hands? I only have to shout for you, don't I? Mr. Guestman, You are the Cold War orphan. If you go home to Moscow as ordered, you'll be either shot or sent to die in one of the camps. Wouldn't you prefer to ask us for protection? We have no powers of permanent arrest. And our arrangement with the Americans was that they hit your agents and we make you this invitation. I can't see an alternative for you. If you cooperate, we can give you a new start, a new identity. Seclusion, a modest amount of money. So why don't you start by telling me your true name? Would you like a cigarette? I know you're a chain smoker. Oh, Pete. I know this is what you smoke. Look, I'm not offering you wealth or smart women or your choice of fast cars. I know you haven't any use for those things. And I'm not going to make any claims about the moral superiority of the West. I'm sure you can see through our values, just as I can see through yours in the East. You and I have spent our lives looking for the weaknesses in each other's systems. I'm sure each of us has experienced innumerable technical satisfactions in our wretched Cold War. But now your own side is going to shoot you for nothing, for misdemeanors you have not committed, because of a power struggle within your own hierarchy, because probably of someone's treachery or sheer incompetence. I'm sure both of us, when we were young, subscribed to great visions. But not anymore. After all you've seen. You can't still be committed to that old grand design. You know it's achieved nothing except new forms of the old misery. Don't destroy yourself. They're not worth it. Do you know where your wife is? I mean, at this moment. You have to think about her. She'll have to make a new life. Did you have a friend? One really good friend who could look after her? Perhaps we could get in touch with her secretly. If you stay with us, we might be able to arrange something. An exchange for someone your people want returned. But if you go back, it can do her nothing but harm. She'll be cold-shouldered, suspected. The best she can hope for is to be allowed to see you before you're shot. Another meaningless firing squad. Guard.
What did Control have to say when you got back?
I hope to God they do shoot him. But they didn't. His boss was the one who faced the firing squad, as it turned out. Mr. Gerstmann survived and thrived. How he thrived. He went on to build his legend and become the Carla we know. The Carla who all the time he sat looking at me was no doubt thinking of Gerald the Mole. Have you noticed, Peter, that whenever I really trouble one of our acquaintances with my questions, he'll raise the matter of my failure as a husband to confound me? Instructive.
Ricky Tarr tried it twice.
Unimportant in his case. Spite. Well, that was sumptuous. That boy Fawn, good at his judo, isn't he?
Karate, George. Judo is what Fawn would call just your little cuddle, Mr. Smiley.
I don't think even Toby Esterhazy's people would follow us here. The food's well below the standard they've come to expect.
So, Carla's fireproof. He can't be bought and he can't be beaten.
Not fireproof, because he's a fanatic. I may have behaved like a soft dolt, the very archetype of a flabby Western liberal, but I'd rather be my kind of fool than his. One day, that lack of moderation will be Carla's downfall. He's never touched radio since the debacle in San Francisco. Got it right out of his handwriting. His agents aren't allowed near it.
That's something else you and Carla have in common.
Yes, I am prejudiced against radio men. Tiresome breed, overstrung, unreliable. What's the other thing?
Well, the cigarette lighter. I assume you still have it.
As far as I know, Peter.
Sorry, George.
Not at all. How do you feel, Peter?
I'm all right.
After Delhi, you know, Control gave me 3 months' leave without the option. When this is over, I hope you'll take it easy for a while. We're not quite there, but nearly. Peter, have you got the handbrake on? Operation Witchcraft. Alaline to Minister. Extremely secret and personal. We spoke. Merlin, as you may have known for some time, is not one source, but several. It would do the Treasury no harm to learn, Percy was enjoying himself, wasn't he? To learn that Merlin's 10,000 Swiss francs a month in salary and a similar figure for expenses and running costs are scarcely excessive when the cloth has to be cut so many ways. Then he adds, nevertheless, I regard it as paramount that knowledge of the London house and the purpose for which it is used remain absolutely at a minimum. Well, in a sense, Percy Allaline's quite right about Merlin. Of course, Merlin represents several sources, various departments of Moscow Center, with Karla queuing them in on the basis of the most timely material of the given moment. Sometimes he likes to direct circus attention to a topical subject, sometimes to deflect it. For example, after Rikita's encounter with Irina in Lisbon, Merlin delivered some vivid insights on the ideological penetration of the United States.
But Carla doesn't know what Tar's done with the information from Irina.
Which brings us to your interrogation by Alaline and his reference to Tar's probable role over here in muddying pools, etc. Merlin's message on Tar, I suggest, was that Ricky would be trying to sell to someone in London, on Carla's behalf, fictitious material about a traitor in the circus. Nothing muddier than that, is there? Remember, Merlin is totally believed. So now we have a clear connection between Merlin and the mole. And at the heart of this beautifully symmetrical plot is a house in London for which the Treasury paid £60,000, plus another 10 for making it more to Merlin's liking, or Gerald's.
Fascinating, George. Thank you. And how do you suggest I explain to my minister, least painfully, that Merlin's a fraud and he'll have to tell the Americans so? He's devoted to Merlin.
Impress upon him that whatever he's buying from the Americans with Merlin's discredited currency is going straight to Moscow via Gerald the Mole. That should do the trick.
This document is not one you've asked me to bring. It arrived only today. Source unknown. According to a recently released prisoner from Lubyanka jail, Moscow's center held a secret execution in the punishment block in March. The victims were 3 of its own functionaries. All were shot in the back of the neck. One was a woman.
Ricky Tar mustn't know. It's vital he gets no wind of this. God knows what he'd do or not do if he found out Irina was dead. And we may need to make further use of it.
Do you really believe all that guff about Tar being in love with her? The little homestead in the Highlands, the avenging lover, the honourable Ricky Tar?
He may feel compelled, Peter. Everybody has a loyalty somewhere. He mustn't know.
I agree. Now, George, I've wrote all I could find on Jim Frieda, such as it is.
Thank you.
Frieda and Bill Hayden were really very close, you know. I hadn't realized.
Yes. Thank you. Operation Testify. We still need to understand what happened, or rather, why it happened. The file you borrowed, Peter, does at least give us a nudge in the right direction. I think I know who to talk to next. Your day was hardly wasted.
I am glad of that, George.
We've traced Prida. He's become a teacher. Thursgood Preparatory School for Boys. It's in the West Country.
Right.
According to sun.